to Wild on 6TV, the Oxford Channel. I'm Sasha Norris, and I'm here today at Lodge Park, just outside Burford, and I'm going a bit hysterical. I mean, historical. Hey Betty, you enjoying yourself here at Lodge Park? Lodge Park is a 4,000-acre Gloucestershire estate owned by the National Trust, but it wasn't always the case. Patrick Tomkin is lurking inside, and he's going to tell us about the rogues gallery on the wall in there. Hello Patrick, this is Patrick. Who's this Patrick?
Here we go, Thomas Dunn, Esquire of Chester, according to the frame here. This was the man that bought the estate, an enormous estate in the Cotswolds, right from Thomas Allen. Now, Thomas Allen was a rich London city merchant who himself leased the entire strip of land from the Abbot of Winchcombe. Now, the Abbot of Winchcombe intended to avoid the dissolution of the monasteries and save his Cotswolds estate from the crown.
What that means is that the government were trying to get the land off the church, is that right?
The king was trying to get the land off the church. Henry VIII wanted all of the land that belonged to the churches in the country.
Right.
He wanted to accumulate that land.
Right.
The Abbot of Winchcombe wasn't going to let that happen, so he sold it to Thomas Allen first.
He wasn't going to let it be stolen by the king, he wanted the cash.
Precisely.
Okay.
He wanted the cash. Thomas Allen could see the problem. Thomas Allen knew how powerful the crown was and how intent Henry VIII was on getting this land into his grasp. But so in selling again the entire estate to Thomas Dutton, he managed to avoid that dissolution. So Thomas Dutton was heir to an estate that ran not just for 4,000 acres, but all the way from here to Cheltenham. This man could ride on this on his own land as far as this major city for the wool trade. So wool passing along this high, long strip of land in the Cotswolds, all the way from Burford through to Cheltenham, past rich wool towns like Northleach. Eventually, 100 years later, the whole estate has passed to John Dutton. Now, John Dutton is the first of the Dutton family, a Cheshire family who travelled to England with William the Conqueror in 1066 and lived in Cheshire. John Dutton was the first man to actually live here on the Sherborne estate. His twin loves in life were gambling and dogs. And this is a picture attributed to William Dobson. It can't have been by William Dobson. Up here in dark brown, there's a very faint inscription which says, "Aetatis sui," his age, 64, in the year of his death, 1656. Well, William Dobson died in 1646, so it's not by him.
It's a fake.
It's a fake. It's a fantastic, beautiful picture, but it's a copy. You might be able to tell that it's a copy by looking at this dog here. Beautiful dog from neck up, chicken from neck down.
Looks like a chicken from the neck down.
See what you think. John Dutton was an MP. He was working and living part of the time in Oxford as part of the Carolean, the Charles I court there. Charles I was staying at Christ Church College. He'd taken over the whole college for his retinue. His wife, Henrietta Maria, the Spanish Queen, was living at Merton College just next door. And the Parliament, during the Civil War in the 1640s, was in Convocation House, the long room at the back of the Bodleian Library. So John Dutton must have been an MP in that setting. About 20 minutes, 40 minutes drive today, but certainly the better part of a day's journey on horseback in 1634 to 1645.
Now, all these pictures in here, are they all people that have owned the estate? Because that's a long time ago.
Not every single one of them. They're all people connected to the story. We don't need to go through every single one of them, but there are some major parts of the story.
Okay.
So Ralph Dutton was John's second nephew. This is where the trouble really starts. This is a Victorian copy of a 17th century original portrait of Ralph Dutton, second nephew of John Dutton.
It looks like a girl, Patrick.
He's a bit girly. It's something to do with his costume.
He's wearing a dress.
But look, notice how his posture.
Yeah.
He's saying, "This is my land. This is my estate. I'm lord and master of all I see,
right,
and all I survey." Ralph Dutton was another gambling man and a drinker. He had his own regiment in the Civil War, and he was involved in various intrigues. One time he had to swim the Bristol Channel to escape from the King's men in the midst of the war itself. But most of the time he spent here, living at Sherborne House, 3 miles away in the village of Sherborne itself, and then spending his weekends or his days off gambling with his rich friends here at Lodge Park. Now, they were watching deer coursing. They were watching two dogs race along a mile-long course, a track outside.
Now, in case you're wondering why we're doing a history programme on Wild, here's the point. We're about to go out onto the estate and look with Mike Robinson, the warden here at the land management. And we're also going to look at the deer coursing. We're just driving up the western edge of the estate, down towards Sherborne village. We've got Mike Robinson, the warden, in the car, and we're going to go and look at the water meadows and the woodlands and see how it's managed by the National Trust to reflect what used to happen hundreds of years ago.
Superb site, lovely site. We're lucky enough to have ospreys.
Got osprey?
So yeah, we've had ospreys here during this spring as
Blimey.
well, around about sort of May time. They don't actually nest here. What they do, they come here, stop over on the way further north. Now it could be the Rutland birds, or they could be heading up further north. But they come here, they stay for about sort of 2 or 3 days, had their fill of the brown trout, and they time it perfectly, and it always seems to be that every time they restock with brown trout in here. Several weeks later, the ospreys come, and obviously on the grapevine they know what's going on, and they come here and have a lovely time.
So Mike, behind us is the deer park where you said that they used to go and get the deer from Wychwood Forest.
That's right, we've got records going back to about the 1500s of deer being purchased from Wychwood Forest and being brought to Sherborne to go into the old park, as it was named then, to form sort of the deer herds here. And so now the whole park is now grazed by organic dairy herd on this side, and then we've got beef cattle on the Sherborne village side of things, and then we've grazed up on this section up here. We've got another beef herd up here as well.
Because you were saying to me that a lot of the estate, the 4,000 acres, is tenanted, isn't it, to farmers?
Is, yeah.
So you don't have to look after it yourselves, which would be an enormous
we've got
undertaking.
5 tenant farms on here, the largest one being about 900 acres, and the smallest one about 150.
But what you have got here also the trees, the young trees that you've been planting, and that's a very specific kind of planting, isn't it?
It is.
And from a historical point of view, I was just talking about the planting, the tree planting. You've actually gone round and seen the kinds of trees that were here historically and then replanted with those, haven't you? Which is a lot of work.
We actually, quite a few years ago now, we actually took round one of the elderly people of the village, and they could remember where trees were. We also found the stumps of a lot of the other trees that had been cut down, and we then mapped these. And what we're now doing is a process of replanting with like-for-like species in the park. We probably plant about 5 or 6 every 5 to 10 years, just so that we can then rebuild this landscape to how it would have been in the 1800s.
So we're now in, this is called the Windrush Valley, is that right?
Yes, yeah, we're now in the Windrush Valley, which is sort of the eastern side of the estate.
We've got Abingdon, Witney, Oxford, Cheltenham. Here's the River Windrush, and we were saying the boundary between, we're just in Gloucestershire.
Basically, you can see the A40, we're about halfway between Oxford and Cheltenham.
A40.
And the A40 divides the estate in half. So basically that section there is on the estate.
Right.
That's right.
And over there, some of those trees we were talking
have some
about.
lovely veteran trees. Yes.
Let's go. Mike's disappeared. He's round the other side of this huge tree. And we can't see each other. It's so big. Here you are, Mike.
We're back again.
So 300 years old, you think?
It's got to be something like 300, 350 years old.
And do you have an official tree hugging sort of person that comes around and hugs the trees? Or not?
That's me.
That's you, is it? It's sort of like more unofficial.
Yeah. One of our advisors came round and he said he loves it up here because you can just smell the deadwood. And it's right, you can just smell, and there's so much deadwood around here, and the beetles, and that is fantastic.
Now we've got something, what this tree might look like, because over here, here's one that died earlier. This is a good example of why not to chop out dead wood, isn't it? This is a nest that's been vacated of some kind of wasp, I think. Is that a fungi? Looks like a dead fungi there.
And you can see on the root plates up there.
Oh, look at that. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not the time of year for fungi. We're in July, and the fungi really sort of get going later on in in the season when things are a bit damper, they're living inside the tree now, but the fruiting bodies don't start coming out and being noticeable until usually in the autumn when they breed, when they produce their spores and spread themselves around. And of course the reason why it's so porous like this, so easy to break, so crumbly, is because of the fungi, the body of the fungi spreading itself through the dead wood and allowing in all the other animals to come in and make their nests as well and eat their way through it.
We need pieces of wood tree like this just lying around and just slowly rotting away.
And this is something that perhaps is different from the historical perspective, that people perhaps then would have tried to tidy everything up, but they didn't really have the machinery to do it particularly efficiently.
That's right,
whereas we've inherited that tidiness, but we now can do it so efficiently that we're losing a lot of the species that depend on dead wood.
Money-wise, you could sell this for firewood and whatever, but no, I think far more valuable as it is now as a rotting tree.
We're having to
which is
rethink.
Totally.
Rethink our values and realise that the animals that live on this and all the animals that live on the animals that live on this are more important. But I mean, that behind you is not just a home for lots of insects and bats and birds. That's a sculpture.
We're on our easterly side of the estate now, far northeast corner. If you look, the poplar trees just off the estate, from the top field right the way through down to the bottom is the water meadows. 140 acres of hay meadows and flood meadows on here.
It's absolutely lovely, isn't it? It's totally different to the barley field we just saw. It's got this kind of ruggedness, this wildness, hayness to it.
It is. It's lovely and quiet down here. I mean, you wander down here, there are paths around here, and you just hear the skylarks singing, yellowhammers. You know, it's just a fantastic place.
And you keep it wet, don't you? With a particular system which has been in operation for a long time.
We do. We actually manage the water levels through the water meadow system through a system of sluice gates. And what we do is we can drop the gates down, backfill the water so they can go down through these ditches, and then through a system of ridge and furrows we can then sort of flood certain sections. And then the system was that once you then, through the springtime, you can actually then take the water off, you get this fast growth of grass, and then you can then put your sheep onto these fields. We've got whitethroats, reed buntings, skylarks here, snipe, redshank. We've had redshank here, and they do breed here. Unfortunately, this year we found out that actually they came, but actually then went. And one of the problems is that the grass levels and the water levels have to be right. They're a fussy little bird. They don't like grass too high. They like to see where the predators are.
You were saying they liked it this high.
Yeah, I mean,
the lapwings like it this high.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And the reason we make such a fuss about this is because those are both birds of conservation importance.
They are.
Once upon a time, they would have just nested wherever they could fit in amongst the much wetter landscape that we had. But now we've drained so much of the natural landscape that we have to sort of be very conscious of giving them places to make their homes. It's very quiet here, isn't it, Mike?
It is. Fantastic. I mean, you can wander along here in the evening, and it's just so peaceful.
What do you like most about your work?
One is the variety, because from conservation work, doing TV, and then going on through to forestry work, conservation, as I said before. It's just totally variety. But then you get times where you can actually just sit down in a place like this and just enjoy the wildlife. It's just so peaceful.
So Ralph Dutton, he's a gambling man, so much so that eventually he's gambled away the entire family estate. There's one apocryphal story about the butler having to come in and drag bodily Ralph out of the room before he gambled away his own house. So Ralph managed to survive.
Drunk and gambleful was he?
Yeah, absolutely, a real debauched character. Now have a look at this next picture of him. By the time he's, well, what do you reckon, Sasha? 40, 45?
Yeah.
There's no date to this picture, so it's a bit of a guess.
Can we
It's
see
a bit
that?
shiny. This is a repair here. This is repair that's happened to this picture.
Right.
But in later life, you can see the effects of all of that booze. He's retained that same posture. He's still in command of everything he surveys, but probably slightly less, having gambled it all away.
Are you saying he's gained a certain amount of weight, Patrick?
Experience, and a patina.
So, we're now in 1678. No, hang on. Yeah, sometime around then. What happens between then and now?
Between 1678 and now, quite a lot happens in this building, but for the next 30 or maybe 60 years, Lodge Park is being used still as a grandstand for watching the sport of deer coursing, and it's being used as a place of entertainment and a place to enjoy a fabulously debauched day out. See that cow?
Yeah.
That cow is right in the middle of the deer course.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
It's in trouble.
It is in trouble. It's
Only
all
there
right
ain't
right
no deer
now.
coursing now.
No, it's okay for now.
Those men in the 17th century and women would come up here onto this roof
That's
of this
right.
building and watch deer coursing,
Yeah.
i.e. deer being chased down by deer hounds.
Deerhounds,
correct?
or rather Talbots. In those days, Talbots, and now an extinct breed as far as we're aware. Talbots were a big French breed with broad shoulders and like a hound, like any hound, like a whippet or a deerhound, with a very spring-like rear half, hindquarters, with a very powerful coiled spring in those muscles there.
Now, I know that dogs aren't normally allowed up here, Patrick,
That's
but
right.
we've got a dog here as a prop.
A specimen.
This is Betty here. Now, Betty doesn't look much like she would be very good at deer coursing, does she? How would a Talbot hound differ from Betty?
Interestingly, a Talbot hound would be bigger, but interestingly, this kind of hound would be exactly the kind of hound to start the race. Now, a mile away up here, the deer is there, two dogs are there. The deer doesn't feel particularly inclined to go anywhere, you might think. A mongrel greyhound, I'm sorry, but a mongrel kind of hound would have teased that deer out of its pen and started it chasing down the deer course. At its furthest point, the deer course was 200 metres wide. At its narrowest point, 90 metres wide, and finishing just down below us in front of the grandstand. So that's the climax for your race, and the point at which you can see which dog has won and who's won the money.
And would they have jumped over fences on their way down?
No fences, no obstacles, other than two ditches. So right at the very end, a first ditch, probably quite a narrow ditch, that allows you to see which dog is passing first because it's the first one into the air, and then a second ditch, which is so wide that the deer can cross it, but the dogs can't make it.
Now, this is a very bloody spectator sport, isn't it? I mean, they would have the deer would have been killed right in front of this grandstand.
It doesn't seem very sporting at all. It's some historical opinions about 17th century sports were that they were all an excuse for gambling, and it was the exchange of money in a gambling situation that was the exciting part, regardless of what was happening on the actual sports field.
Right.
Only under certain circumstances would the deer be killed. Probably not through some sense of humane animal welfare, but rather through the economics of the thing, because a deer costs money to breed and farm. So you didn't want to lose so many deer in a day's racing that you had to restock your deer park with expensive beasts.
Well, I'm not sure I would have thought much of deer coursing, but I think Betty would have enjoyed it. Wouldn't you?
Well, there's absolutely no need to condone the sport for an appreciation of the place here. This place is interesting in as much as this is a historical source, the one of its kind. There are no deer courses left.
And there are some parts of Lodge Park that you can visit every day of the week, and they're looking for volunteers to help them work on the estate and buildings. So if you'd like to get in touch with them, call them on 01451 844 130. That's 01451 844 130 for any other query you may have about beautiful Lodge Park. Meanwhile, Betty's dreaming about better days.
It is, yeah.
This is where the National Trust store their bats. Some of them.
On our last count, about 70 horseshoe bats within this one
Lesser
roof.
horseshoe?
Lesser horseshoe.
70 lesser horseshoe bats in here. This is bat music.
It is, yeah.
This is a bat box which actually reduces the frequency of the sound made by the bats, which is above human hearing.
Yeah.
Isn't it enchanting, the sound?
It's a warble.
All of the bat species are declining, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
Yeah, they all need help, but these are particularly rare.
These are particularly
Species.
endangered, and they're very. You won't find these in sort of Sussex areas. They're confined to the west of the country, and there's So we want to sort of find out where they're going, what insects they're feeding, and try and help them to manage the landscape so they will increase, you know, their population within this area.
Are you a bit batty?
I am at times.
Yeah. I'm a bit
Yeah,
batty.
I just love them.
I don't understand why people don't like them. I find them absolutely charming.
They're fascinating creatures. I mean, these bats here, the letters, only weigh about 5 grams, and
5 grams.
they're tiny creatures with a wingspan of about that sort of 7 or 8 inches. But they've got such a lovely silky fur and a lovely face expression.
They're like little mice with
And
wings, aren't
they
they?
are, and
The sweetest little mice. Hello, they're all coming now. Oh, they're so charming. Hello. Wow, they're really bat action now. That's it from Wild this week. Thank you for watching. Go out and listen to the peace in the countryside around you. If there's a story going on that you think we should be covering, we're very pleased to hear from you. So do write in to 6TV, the Oxford Channel, 270 Woodstock Road, Oxford OX2 7NW, or you can phone in on 01865 55 7000. Always better to write to me though, because then I've got something to go on. And now I'm going to shut up and let you listen to the quiet. Hear the bees buzzing.